G'day folks. Today we're going to tackle a problem involving power rules. It's a question that has several rules involved. It's got product of powers, powers of powers, quotients of powers, and a power to 0. It's a question I gave to my grade 10 class. The sheet that it was on, it was question 31. So if you're one of those grade 10s, you can have a look at question 31. What I'm going to do is, one of the ways I'm going to approach it, or it's just one of the ways you can do it, is I'm going to raise each one of these terms to the power of -2. So I'm going to first start off with the power of power rule. So the first thing I'm going to do is x to the power of 1. When there's no exponent, it is a 1 implied, and it's 1 times -2. So first thing I'll do is that x, and I end up with x to the power of -2. Going alphabetically, instead of the syntax that it's written in, I'm going to go y to the 3 to the power of -2. So it's 3 to the power of -2. I multiply them, and I get y to the -6. I now have z to the power of 1 to the -2, so it's z to the -2. Treating the second side over here on the other side of this multiplication sign differently, I have x to the power of -2 to the power of -2. So -2 times -2 is 4. Y, which is that unhidden 1, becomes y to the -2, and z squared to the -2 becomes z to the -4. I now deal with the denominator. The denominator is included this power of power because the brackets extend not only to the numerator, but over the entire fraction. So -2 times -1 gives me +2, so I start with x to the +2 on the bottom, and y cubed to the power of -2 gives us y to the -6. So that's our first step done. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify the top and simplify the bottom. Well, the bottom is easy. There's nothing really to simplify, so I'm just going to carry the bottom right down. So x squared y to the -6, writing it down on the bottom. The numerator does have some things to simplify, so I'm going to multiply my x's, my y's, and my z's by keeping the base, and product of powers tells me to add my exponents. So -2 plus 4 gives me x squared, -6 plus -2 gives me y to the -8, and z to the -2 times z to the -4 gives me z to the -6. Awesome. So my numerator is simplified. My denominator is simplified. Now I can do quotient of powers. So I'm going to now divide x squared divided by x. Well, keep my base, subtract my exponents. What's that give me? X to the 0. Whoa. Y to the -8 divided by y to the -6. I keep my base, which is y. -8 subtract -6 gives me y to the -2. And finally, z to the -6. Well, there's nothing left to divide the z by, so I'm just going to write down z to the -6. Almost done. One of the things about powers and exponents is you're really never supposed to leave a negative exponent. So I'm going to simplify these out by reciprocating them. I'm also going to take this x to the power of 0, and anything raised to the power of 0 gives me a 1. So I'm going to leave, my numerator is going to have a 1, and the y to the -2 and the z to the -6 are moving to the denominator, and I end up with a final solution of 1 over y squared z to the 6. Takes something very large and cumbersome and breaks it down into one of each types of terms. For those grade 10s that are watching this, good luck on your ICA and the next time I see you, and your unit test coming up at the 1st of next week.